Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for the lousiest, the drowsiest, the crummiest, and the slummiest, the weakest, meekest podcast on planet Earth. If you're ready for the worst of the takes and the stomach that aches, allow me to introduce the Worst Baseball Podcast.
Stepping up to the plate is the Worst Baseball Show. We're back, episode 18. Noah, how you doing?
That's a bad time shift. That's a bad time shift. I'm doing good. This is one of, that was an incredible playoffs. We already talked about it. Yeah. This is one of my favorite times of the year. The off season is awesome. Yeah. It's like a reality show. You can't look away. You have to refresh Twitter, every 20 minutes. You have fake reporters saying stuff. You have real reporters saying a bunch of bullshit.
You have two idiots sitting in front of a camera saying stuff. Yeah,
exactly. It's great. It's great. And it's an awesome crop of free agents. It's one of the best classes.
It's
in
fun.
5 years.
I think it's very well balanced.
Mm-hmm.
You got star pitchers, you got star hitters, you got a lot of really good, kind of under the radar guys. Moves are going to be made this offseason, and we're here to predict them. If you watched last week, we talked about it a little bit, but this week we decided to talk about it some more and not torture ourselves by eating hot sauce and giving ourselves diarrhea and almost throwing up on camera. So. Yeah. Any exciting highlights from the last week in your own personal life?
No, not really.
Okay.
Been a crazy week. To stay on the topic of free agency, I just want to.
He doesn't want to talk about his personal life.
I don't want to talk about my personal. Well, there's nothing exciting really to talk about in my personal life. Yeah, I had some bad stomach pain after the last episode.
Yeah.
There's been some crazy political appointments. In the cabinet, I would say that's probably been the craziest thing that happened this week.
I heard. Whatever his name.
Matt Gaetz.
No. What's Ipe?
Ipe is the Secretary of Treasury. Yeah. I saw it. The memes have been great. Did you watch the Jake Paul-Mike Tyson fight?
No.
You didn't miss
shit. I didn't waste my
time.
That
was the worst thing I ever watched in my entire life. It was like an interpretive dance. They didn't even really throw punches.
Somehow I didn't even hear about it until yesterday, and my girlfriend told me. So that's how plugged in I am. So.
I wasn't planning on watching it, and then I ended up at a bar that had it on, and I was like, okay, now I'm kind of excited for this.
I think if I was somewhere where it was on, I would have watched it.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't think either of us had plans to watch it. Back to free agency.
Yeah.
I think that this free agency, it has to start. It all centers around one man. Do you know what I'm talking about? Do you have any guesses?
Scott Boras.
Scott Boras, exactly. Nice. Good call. Last year, Scott Boras
fell. Shit the bed.
He shit the bed. He fell flat on his face. We saw him literally clients dropped him this year.
Yeah.
Jordan Montgomery dropped him. That contract looked terrible.
Jordan Montgomery's getting dropped by more than one.
Yeah, he's getting dropped, and he's getting name-dropped by his owner. But that sums it up. That's how poorly it went.
Yeah.
Blake Snell, it looks like it was going to be a disaster for half the year. Cody Bellinger opted in. Didn't even test the market, But this is undeniably a different crop of talent. It all comes down to talent. And I think baseball is a game of failure. It's a game of failing and then getting over that mountain and succeeding. Look what I just found. You're not... Teoscar Hernandez.
Has been in this seat.
Been in this chair for a week. There have been meetings in this room. Teoscar Hernandez. That is great. That is not a plan. That is not a plan. I just noticed a T. Hernandez. Teoscar Hernandez. That's a callback to last week. I'm mad we didn't think about that and plan that just organically happened.
That's hilarious. Oh my God.
That's crazy. Wow. Well, maybe we should save this for when we have Teoscar Hernandez.
Maybe we should. I've got a contract prediction for him.
So do I. But yeah, I think
so funny.
I think last offseason, I think we're reading too much into the Boras failures. There is so much talent. And I have a quote. I came prepared with a quote.
Confucius?
Similar. Not Confucius. Okay. Not really that similar. I don't know why I said similar. Well, that's for you to decide. Better 3 hours too soon than a minute too late.
Honestly,
said that?
That's kind of philosophical.
It's philosophical. Yeah. Said it.
Better 3 hours too soon than a minute too late. Mussolini.
Whoa. Well, you're very good there. Not close at all. Shakespeare.
Very close.
Did you think Mussolini was close to Confucius?
No, I was just trying to go completely out.
Okay, either way, wrong. Yeah. Either way, wrong.
Yeah.
I think this free agency is all about timing. If certain free agents, I feel like, have to wait for Juan Soto, especially the outfielders. Like, we'll talk about this guy, but he's a good example. Teoscar Hernandez. His market completely shifts based on where Juan Soto signs. If he goes back to the Yankees, he may have different suitors than if he goes to a different team. The Yankees might be interested if they don't sign Juan Soto.
Sure.
So much of this is going to come down to timing, and so much of this timing is going to be orchestrated by Scott Boras. He's like the master puppet. He's got it all in his hands. There's fake stories coming out. We'll talk all about it, but it's going to come down to timing, and the big market teams look to be the ones that are going to dominate, just like we saw in the playoffs. So it'll be interesting.
We're going to have to see.
And so we have a game. I will explain the game.
Much less dangerous than last week's game.
Much less disgusting too.
Yeah.
So essentially, we're doing a free agent predictions game. There's been similar ideas. I'm sure that you've seen other podcasts all over Twitter. But basically, we have 20 free agents. We're going to take turns drafting them, predicting what team they're going to and what contract they're going to sign. So years and monetary gain. So how it's going to work is if you correctly predict a free agent to re-sign with the team that they were on last year, you get 5 points. If you correctly predict a free agent to sign with a team that they weren't on last year, you get 10 points. And then there is the contract portion of this. So let's take Juan Soto, for example. If you draft him and say that he's going to sign a 10-year deal, and you are correct, he signs a 10-year deal, you get 10 points. So you get the amount of points. Yeah. If you are correct.
6-year deal, 6 points. 5-year deal, 5 points.
Perfect. And then
1-to-1 ratio.
1-to-1 ratio. And then the last piece of this is the AAV, average annual valuations. If you are within 1 million of correctly predicting someone's AAV, you get the amount of AAV divided by 2. So, for example, if you selected Juan Soto to re-sign with the Yankees a 10-year, $600 million deal, and that turned out to be correct.
The AAV is $60 million.
Yeah.
You get 30 points for that.
You get 5 points for him re-signing, 10 years for the contract, 30 points, half the AAV, you get 45 points. So Juan Soto is this game's white whale.
Of course.
Because of the contract that he's going to get. So that makes the first pick very important. And I think there's no better way to settle this than a rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
No, absolutely not. So, again, real quick summary. 10 points for correctly predicting a player to sign on a new team. 5 points to correctly predict a player re-signing with their team. 1 point if for each year of the contract but it must be predicted correctly.
Yes.
So 10 years is 10 points, 5 years 5 points, so on and so forth. And then the final points is the average annual value. If you correctly predict the average annual value, you get
within
half,
one. 1 million either way.
Yeah, 1 million either way. You get half of that average annual value, the point total.
And we won't be scoring during this episode, so it won't be super complicated. That only comes when the free agents
If
sign.
I feel like spending a lot of time editing, I'll throw all the names that we're drafting on the screen for you to quickly look at here and take them away as we draft each one. So you can at least keep track of the names that we've got on here.
Yeah.
And you're not going to be waiting for, I don't know, who's a free agent we don't have. Estevez. You're not going to be waiting for Estevez because he's not in here. So we picked 20 that we thought were the top or something close to that, and that's who we're drafting.
Yes, exactly. Do you want me to read them off, or you're just going to do that?
I'll throw them on the screen.
Okay.
Whatever.
All right, well, let's rock, paper, scissors, shoot for the first pick.
All right, 2 out of 3 or just...
2 out of 3.
Okay.
And we're doing rock, paper, scissors, shoot, and then go.
No, you shoot on shoot.
Okay.
Release on shoot.
Yeah.
Okay.
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
All right.
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
All right.
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
Damn it!
Dang. Give me Juan Soto.
I didn't think. Whatever.
Give me Juan Soto with the first pick. It has to be Juan Soto. Simply has to be. And I have him returning to the New York Yankees with a 14-year, $620 million contract.
Okay, we had
what did you have for?
I had 13 for 600 even.
Okay, so what is that AAV?
My 46.15.
Okay, so I got the extra year, but it's about 44 million, so a little bit less. We just talked about Scott Boras. I think this is what I think. Scott Boras is going to do every single thing possible to extract every single dollar he possibly can from his clients. That's his job. I do think at the end of the day that Juan Soto wants to return to the Yankees.
I agree.
This is a guy he's one of the best baseball players of this generation. Legacy has to play a factor. It has to. And if he wins championships with the New York Yankees, there is no doubt that his legacy will improve. More so than if he wins championships with the Mets, with the Red Sox, with the Blue Jays, whatever other teams are in the running. Speaking of that, did you see the Mike Tyson interview with that little kid where he talked about legacy?
I saw nothing about any of this. I didn't know any of this was happening until yesterday.
Okay. All right. Well, all right. You're not clued in. Anyway, he had a funny quote about legacies, but I think that matters here. And I think everything that's been going on with the narratives, with the news stories, it screams to me Scott Boras trying to get the value up because his client is willing to take a small pay cut to go back to the New York Yankees. Getting the Red Sox involved in the mix. Mm-hmm. Throwing out Steve Cohen, who has all the money in the world at his disposal. These are the exact... If you wanted to re-sign with the Yankees, but wanted to drive up the price, the two teams that you would throw out there as really contending are the Mets and the Red Sox. Red Sox came out of it's more the Red Sox. They came out of nowhere. Yeah. That doesn't make anything. Then you throw in another division team with the Blue Jays look to be the fourth real contender. Yeah, and I think we'll talk about how the Mets have other options and a plan B throughout the rest of this draft.
Yeah.
I don't really think the Yankees have it.
No, I agree
like I said, you can pivot to Teoscar Hernandez, but that's not the same. That's not the same. The Yankees, there is really no scenario in which they don't re-sign Juan Soto and I think can contend for a World Series next year.
Agree.
And that's the most important thing the fans are itching for, especially after the collapse defensively to end the season. So I think Juan Soto going back to the Yankees, 14 years, $620 million.
There you go. Okay, well, you know what? You talked about Steve Cohen. You talked about a pivot. I agree with you. I think Juan Soto is returning to the Yankees. We are fairly similar on our contract evaluation, our prediction there. And I think once Juan Soto signs with the Yankees, that opens the Mets up to bring their own hometown star back to their club.
Ooh, okay.
Number one pick. I'm taking Pete Alonso to the New York Mets. 8 years, $226 million.
Wow, you got it. We are very different in money and contract.
Jurgen, I think this is going to be a theme between our drafts. After seeing what happened with the Shohei Ohtani contract last year, I have absolutely no doubt that the contracts all this offseason are going to be 20 to 25% higher than we've grown to expect over the course of the last several seasons. And especially with a guy like Steve Cohen, he's going to be fired up if they don't get Soto. He's going to be throwing money left and right wherever he sees an opportunity to do so. And I do think in my deepest of hearts, Pete Alonso is a New York Met through and through. I think the polar bear anywhere outside Queens, New York is just not going to hit the same.
Freeze.
It's going to... Okay. It doesn't make any sense. But
it's a polar bear. Or no, melt. That's my bad.
Yeah, well, I mean, it could go further north, but you get my point. So $226 million, 8 years for the Mets. That's an average annual value of $28.25 million for Peter Alonso. I think the Mets had a really good formula last year, and if they do fail to pick up Soto in this offseason, they're going to have to make moves that at least maintain their roster as good as it was this past year. They can't afford to lose the big bat of Pete Alonso. You're going to see, at another point, there are pitchers that they can't necessarily afford to lose. Hint, hint, Sean Manaea. So I think once Juan Soto signs with the Yankees, I think that's going to open a lot of the other teams that are in the fight for Soto to bring back guys that are potentially departing free agents on their own clubs right now, or stretch their limbs out and pick up guys like T. Hernandez.
It could be anybody.
It could be anybody.
Maybe that's not ours.
It's probably for
Maybe
Thomas
it came
Hernandez.
from a client meeting.
Yeah, client meeting.
They needed this.
Thomas.
I like your analysis there.
Yeah.
I think it makes a lot of sense. I was way up, very different, actually.
Yeah.
So I had Alonso making about $23 million a year, 7-year, $165 million contract. And I think he's going to the San Francisco Giants.
Interesting.
I know the Giants are trying to cut payroll a little bit, but this just feels like a Buster Posey signing. Like, it just feels like a guy Buster Posey would love. He doesn't really do anything well on a baseball field but hit home runs.
Yeah.
And I think he's going to make more money than he should. And I don't, whatever team he signs with, I don't think it's going to age very well. And that makes me want to think he's going to a team that I don't think is very smart. And that's the San Francisco Giants, because I think they have to make one splash with the new ownership. I think the presence of Christian Walker, too, in this market makes Alonso's contract really interesting, where you have a plan B for less money, less years, who might be just as valuable, better defender. But yeah, I think I would like to see Pete Alonso back to the Mets. I like that pick.
For sure.
All right.
And believe it or not, this is actually This is only the third most lucrative contract on my board, including Juan Soto, and I think you might be surprised by who I have as the second most lucrative contract on here.
Really? Okay, my first thought is Burnes, but we'll get to it. We'll see. All right, my next pick, I'm happy you didn't pick my guy because he wasn't the logical first overall pick, but it's my favorite pick of the entire draft. My favorite scenario I've created in my head. It's Alex Bregman.
All right.
And so I've seen a scenario floated on Twitter by Buster Olney. It's the only person I've seen say this. And it kind of upset me because I thought of this before Buster Olney said something, and I don't want people to think that I copied Buster Olney.
I think everybody's going to think that, but go ahead.
That's fine. Draw your own conclusions. I think Alex Bregman is going to the Philadelphia Phillies after they trade Alec Bohm.
Okay.
So I originally thought with Bregman.
Instinctually, I hate that for them, but
for the Phillies,
yeah.
I don't think it'll be a great deal. I mean Bregman's 5 years removed from his best season ever, handing out so I have him. I forgot to say the money, and 7-year, $185 million comes out to about $26 million a year. I don't like handing out a contract of 7 years to a guy whose best season was 5 seasons ago. But here's what I think. I originally think of Bregman. We have to start with the Astros, right? GM Dana Brown has hinted at the fact this team might cut payroll. If Bregman gets 7,185 or something around there, it would be the biggest deal in Astros history. You can't hint at cutting payroll and then hand out your biggest contract in franchise history. So I'm immediately eliminating the Houston Astros. And there's this screams of a team kind of wanting to establish culture. Maybe they have a vulnerable front office who needs one last swing to kind of save their jobs. Clubhouse leader, winning player. So the two teams I originally thought of were the Blue Jays and the Tigers. And I was kind of going back and forth. And then I saw that Jeff Passan said that the Phillies are looking to trade Alec Bohm. Based on what happened in the playoffs last year, isn't this the perfect player to bring in? Isn't this the guy who has postseason experience, who puts the ball in play? He emulates Philadelphia. That would be a great match. Bregman in the city of Philadelphia. If he performs, I think they love him. And I think he's the kind of guy that can maybe reverse everything that has happened over in October the past 2 years. I think he's the type of hitter who's different kind of from the rest of the Phillies lineup, from a Castellanos, from a Schwarber, where it's so much swing and miss. Bregman is more just a professional hitter who can work counts and really is not going to be intimidated by the moment, and he's not going to be intimidated by the city of Philadelphia. So I have Alex Bregman to the Phillies. I don't know where Alec Bohm is going. I think they trade him. I'm saying 7 years, $185 million.
All right. I like your reasoning. I like your rationale. Personally, I just can't get over the situation that the Tigers are in. So I had Bregman going to the Tigers. 7 years, 175. So yours was, they're comparable.
Pretty close.
Yeah,
pretty close.
Pretty close. When you get up there, $10 million is not that big a difference. And yeah, I can't get over where the Tigers are, and I can't get over the AJ Hinch connection. It feels like the perfect move for the Tigers to make, in my opinion. It would give them the flexibility to not rely on Javi Baez at shortstop, because they would be able to shuffle some of their infield talent around. They've got a lot of young players. They got is it Young or Jung for the Tigers? I don't know. I think he's brothers. He's still young, right? Yeah, so they got Young there, Cole Keith. I think that they need help at the corners. It's a perfect time for the Tigers to start spending again. I see no better fit in the free agent market than Bregman. I like the inventiveness of your pick, but I don't see it happening to the Phillies. But regardless, I'm going to go next because it's my turn.
Fair.
And I'm going to take Corbin Burnes, and I think he's returning to the Baltimore Orioles.
Okay.
7 years, $224 million,
wow.
With an average annual value of $32 million.
So that is your second most lucrative deal, right?
No, that is my third most lucrative deal.
And Alonso was 4, Soto 1.
No, this is number 4. No,
okay.
This is number 4.
Oh, wow.
There's Soto, mystery player, Alonso, and Burnes, at least by year.
Okay.
Burnes' average annual value is higher.
Okay, yeah, that's what I meant. But I see what you're saying.
Yeah. Okay, so Corbin Burnes back to the Orioles. I think it just makes way too much sense. I've been hearing people throw around that they're going to go after Blake Snell. I think that the Orioles run their ball club smarter than throwing a lot of money at Blake Snell. I think if they're going to spend...
Really? I think the Orioles just had the worst of any front office. I think they just had the worst year.
Listen. They had a terrible trade deadline.
Even the wall thing is so stupid. They reversed it like that. Did you see that yesterday?
What was this?
They're bringing the wall in next year.
Oh, the wall. Yeah, I mean, that's silly. But that was the
GM's call. That was Elias's call.
Okay, well, fine.
I don't trust their front office.
The thing is, I think, maybe smartest isn't the right word. Conservative, right? And they're in a position where they can't afford to be overly conservative and not bring anybody in because obviously the formula has not worked in the playoffs the last 2 years. But they're also not in a position where I feel they're not the type of team that is conservative. They're not the type of team that goes out there and brings in a guy who could be perceived as a risk. That's kind of what I'm saying. Maybe smartest isn't the right word.
And you're right.
But in this situation, I feel like it is an intelligent move because I do have questions about the longevity and the consistency of Blake Snell, which we may hit on later. But Corbin Burnes proved he can be an all-star pitcher in Baltimore.
Mm-hmm.
He's proven that he can do this year in and year out with very little fluctuation and very little volatility. And the Orioles are not in a situation where they can afford to go through this offseason and spend it like they spent this past trade deadline and just stay quiet.
Yeah.
They've got the Yankees ahead of them. They've got teams like the Red Sox who are in the mix for big names. They've got the Blue Jays who are desperate to make a big move. You can never really count the Rays out. I mean, it's probably year in and year out for the last 5 and probably the next 5, the most competitive division in baseball.
Mm-hmm.
And if the Orioles stand quiet, then it's going to put them more in the middle of the pack than they've been the last 2 seasons, 3 seasons even. And it's going to make this a place that other guys, other homegrown talent of theirs, are not going to really feel too compelled to stay in or take any sort of pay cut if the ownership and the front office is not showing a willingness to spend money outside of the organization. So guys like Rutschman, guys like Henderson are going to start exploring options in free agency if they get there, rather than feeling any sort of inclination to stay in Baltimore and prioritize that. So I've got Burnes, 7 years, $224. The rotation is honestly kind of in shambles if they don't bring him back, and they have no top prospects who are pitchers at this point either. So they're gonna be leaning on guys like Zach Eflin and Grayson Rodriguez, who has shown signs of brilliance, but we haven't seen a full level yet. I mean, Dean Kramer, a guy who they were trotting out there in the worst of the worst years for the Orioles. Bradish is probably out for the entire first half of the year. It just makes too much sense for me. I don't see them going after Snell. I think they're too conservative for that, but I think they have to do something. So Corbin Burnes, in my opinion, is returning to Baltimore. Yeah,
totally. I get a lot of what you're saying. I agree with the conservative nature of their front office and kind of as a reason to re-sign this guy. Elias has not handed out a contract over 1 year in free agency his entire tenure as the Baltimore Orioles GM, which is pretty crazy.
That is crazy. It's first time for everything.
First time for everything.
I just think their hand has been forced by both the market and the situation they're in by falling flat in the playoffs the last 2 years.
And you're right. And it's not like Burnes is their only big free agent. It's also Santander. Yeah. So they cannot afford to do nothing this offseason. If they do let both of those guys walk, they have to sign reinforcements, right?
Yes.
They cannot afford to stand pat. I had Corbin Burnes to the Mets, 7 years, $200 million. But I do think the Orioles match up with the starting pitcher, and it was kind of just mix and match. I have another starter going there, which I'll talk about later. But I think you make a lot of good points. All right, so with my next pick, let's see. What direction do I go here? I just said I had Corbin Burnes to the Mets. Let's add another Mets signing. I have Willy Adames.
Oh, you stole that. Was actually my lucrative deal.
Really? I think he's going to get paid too. I think he's going to get paid. I think your deal will probably overshoot mine. I have 6 years, $180 million for Willy Adames, $30 million a year. What did you have for him?
I have $30 million a year, but for 8 years.
8 years, okay.
$40 million. But I won't say my team yet. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I said I have Alonso to San Francisco. That leaves the Mets without a first baseman. Christian Walker is a free agent, but I think what they're going to do is they're going to sign Willy Adames, whose defense declined last year, and they'll be happy to put at third base with Lindor at short, and move Mark Vientos to first base.
Interesting.
Yeah, and then they have an incredible infield.
That's one hell of an infield.
That's one hell of an infield.
I could see it. The only question in my mind is who do they want more? They want Adames more, or they want Alonso more? Because they're both offense first infielders, and then that means reshuffling the infield. I don't know, but go ahead.
I just think infield defense is so important. And
Yeah.
I think smart baseball clubs, especially the left side of the infield, really, really value that. Willy Adames was he was pretty much the second best shortstop defensively for the last 5 years until this year. He fell off behind Dansby Swanson. Could be an aberration. It came with added offense, so it's kind of a trade-off you'd probably take. And I think Mark Vientos is not good enough defensively at third base for the Mets. But he's a huge part of their plan, but I think it makes more sense to shift him over to first. You put Adames at third, and he's 29 years old. He's 29 years old. So honestly, I may be underselling with the six-year deal. And then look at some of the other free agents that have hit free agency at that time. It's Dansby Swanson. He got $177 million. It's Trevor Story. He got $140 million. Baez $140 million, and that's previous. That's years previous. Yeah. I think that money, is going to go up, and I think the Mets are going to be incredibly active. And Willy Adames it makes a lot of sense. I think New York would love him. Yeah, it's kind of funny because Willy Adames got in a huge fight with the Mets in the wild card round, and Jesse Winker. He said, "Meet me out in the parking lot." They might be teammates. I mean, Winker's a free agent too, but yeah, I have Willy Adames going to the Mets. The Mets shifting their infield around for the post-Pete Alonso era.
Very interesting. I like the reasoning. I can't say that it's my prediction.
So where'd you have him?
I have him going to an NL East team as well, but the Braves for 8 years, $240. Kind of the point you just made about the shortstop market in the past decade or so with the big signings. I think if anything, the demand and the money that's going to be spent on each individual star shortstop that pops over the next few years is going to be so high. Yeah. Because we were looking, I remember in like 2015, 2016, shortstop was the deepest and most exciting position in baseball for the future. And a lot of those guys that we were excited about at that point, like, your Javi Baez's of the world, like your Addison Russells, right? Mm-hmm. There's a lot of excitement around shortstop less than a decade ago, about 8 years ago. But that's kind of dwindled, and a lot of the guys, like we were excited about at that point, like Lindor, like they're locked up. Mm-hmm. There's not a lot of shortstop talent out there right now, and Willy Adames is the one premier shortstop on the market. So any team that's on the brink of winning a World Series, could be in that mix. Yeah, is in need of a shortstop and has money to spend, is going to be right there. And those three factors right there lead me directly to Atlanta. Mm-hmm. They've been very smart with their money over the past few years so they can afford a slight overpay for a star shortstop. We saw it happen last year when the injuries and the underperformance caused an early exit in the playoffs, and they were fighting for that spot until the very end of the season. Yeah. They don't want to be in that position again. I think Willy Adames would be a great fit there. They do not want Orlando Arcia.
Yes, that's the glaring hole for the Braves.
Yeah, they do not want Orlando Arcia in that position again next year. I think that Willy Adames and the Braves fit together like peanut butter and mayonnaise. So,
I love that fit. Yeah. I think it makes perfect baseball sense. I'm a little concerned about the financials for the Braves, but I think what you say makes a lot of sense. Yeah. He's going to get paid. That's for certain. He's going to definitely get paid. By who? We don't know. Yeah. He will be making a lot of money.
Well, my next pick is actually in large part because I have Willy Adames going to the Braves. Mm-hmm. If Willy Adames does not sign with the Braves, I think there's a very good chance his player does, because it's the team that he's known his whole career. But I have Max Fried to the Dodgers for 6 years.
California kid.
6 years, $168 million for an average annual value of $28 million. I think this fit makes a lot of sense personally. The Dodgers are in need of starting pitching pretty desperately. As desperate as a team that just won the World Series can be for any one thing.
With Ohtani and Yamamoto and maybe Sasaki and Glasnow.
Right. They're still desperate because you can't really rely on those guys. Yamamoto, injury history early in his career. Yeah. Shohei Ohtani, coming off that big surgery.
And these are all guys who are used to different pitching schedules in Japan. Of course. Every 6 days, not every 5.
Yeah. Tyler Glasnow, made of glass. Roki Sasaki hasn't played a game in the majors yet.
And not even on the
team. Yeah. But they want some sort of stability in their rotation, and Max Fried, out of any pitcher available, I think, is the guy who, barring maybe Corbin Burnes, I could see a scenario in which he goes to the Dodgers, but because I think he's returning to the Orioles, and because I have Willy Adames going to the Braves, I do think that the Dodgers swipe Max Fried off the free agent market. Mm-hmm. He's never hit 200 innings in a season in his career, but really looking back to 2019, 165 innings. Shortened season in 2020, 56 innings, which was more than
more
than it was
given the year.
2021, 165. 2022, 185. Had some injuries in 2023, which had me concerned. If you remember what I was saying around this time and going to the season last year, that I was concerned about the Max Fried injuries. He came back with 174 innings this season.
And he's not a pitcher, though. And to add to your point, I don't think, like, there are certain pitchers where if they have injuries, it scares the shit out of me. Yeah. He's not one of those because he's not strikeout.
No, he's not strikeout. He's not a power
contact.
arm. Exactly, 100%. That was my very next point. I think if there's anybody out there that the Dodgers need that fits their rotational needs, especially right now, because Walker Buehler could potentially walk and Jack Flaherty could potentially walk, they need pitching. Max Fried is their guy. California kid. They want another World Series. He wants another World Series. I think this fit makes just as much as any that we've said so far. So Dodgers, Max Fried, 6 years, 168. That's $28 million a year.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I have Max Fried actually going to Boston.
Okay.
One thing I will say about the Braves and Max Fried, I have a simple philosophy. If the Braves allow a player to reach free agency, I don't think they're re-signing him. Look at all the deals that they've made, all the extensions they've made to their young stars far before they hit free agency. I just don't know if they can shell out that cash.
That's fair.
And I think the Dodgers do need pitching. I don't know if they've been very successful kind of dumpster diving for pitching in the past and doing these reclamation projects. Yeah. So maybe they spend a little less money and Sasaki's available, but it makes total sense. There are like 4 to 5 teams that need pitching, and there are like 4 to 5 really good pitchers.
Yeah.
And I think they're going to match up. They're going to find each other. Makes perfect sense. I have a little less money, 6 years, $145 million to Boston.
Okay.
All right.
6 years, $145.
Since we're on the pitching train,
well, honestly, what I said about my prediction for my contracts being a bit higher,
yes,
they've been like 20% higher generally. So.
Which makes sense, and I see what you're saying. All right. This Coke is.
You're fucking burping.
I'm burping. I'm burping. This Coke is really. I don't usually drink Coke, and I'm like chugging it. All right.
Also, I decided to wear the A's jersey today because I want to represent a team that both of us, I'm sure, are pretty confident that none of the players on our list are signing with.
Yeah,
so
that's fair.
I want to stand in solidarity with the not even Oakland A's,
what do you
A's
even call
fans
them?
out there.
What do we call them now?
I want to call them the Sacramento A's. Fucking give them to them for a few years. It's Sacramento.
Yeah.
It's the armpit of California. Just like give them something for a few years.
They need something.
At least let them call them the Sacramento A's. So they don't need to be homeless. That's just sad.
Yeah, they literally are homeless. They're just the A's.
Yeah.
There's no first name. All right, my next player.
Oh wait, can I throw one quick other prediction out there?
Yes, go for it. I love predictions.
Does it count for the game?
Well, what is it?
I think that the New York Yankees, I kind of messed this up.
I'll rewind. Men in Black.
Okay.
I forgot what you just said.
All right. Can I use this for the game?
Yes.
Okay. I think that the Tampa Bay Rays sign George Steinbrenner Field 1 year, $15 million.
No, I don't see it.
It doesn't
I don't see it.
Okay.
All right, Blake Snell, my next player.
I really want to talk about him too. You sure?
All right.
Someone else?
We can both talk about it. We'll go back and forth.
It's fine. Yeah, it doesn't really matter.
I have Blake Snell to the Athletics. No, I'm just kidding.
I almost.
I have him going to Baltimore. I think that.
Okay, so you're completely of the opposite mind of what I said.
Yes.
I don't think that the Orioles
and I wanted to save it. So I actually have this deal a little bit different than most of the other deals.
Okay.
I have him only 4 years, but $140 million, which is the second highest AAV of the entire free agent class, besides Juan Soto. It's $35 million a year. Okay. I think he's going to take a shorter deal, and I think there'll be a player option in there at some point. Here's what I'll say. He's 32 years old. Mm-hmm. There has been one deal longer than 5 years for a 32-year-old pitcher this decade. Zach Greinke to Arizona.
Huh.
That aged horribly. 6 years, $206 million. That was a terrible contract. This last decade.
Oh, the past 10 years.
Past 10 years. Okay. Past 10 years. And here's the other thing I'll say.
That's the only one you're sure?
Yeah. A 6-year deal for a 32-year-old
I guess maybe
pitcher or older.
Go on.
Yeah. Here's what I'll say. Blake Snell, you talked about the Orioles pitching situation. They are in dire need of pitchers. The Orioles are a World Series contender. Are you?
No, go ahead. Yeah. Keep going, yeah.
I got my fact checker over here.
Yeah.
I think Snell makes a little more sense with a little bit more of an upside. Then I think he has more upside than Fried. Obviously, the floor is a little bit lower. I also think, at his best, the second half of the past 2 seasons, he's been pretty undoubtedly the best pitcher in the league. Would you agree with that? Post All-Star break, 2023, post All-Star break, 2024. The thing is, the Orioles have reinforcements coming in the second half of the year. The pitcher I'm highest on in the entire organization is Bradish. Surgeries scare me, but I feel like they can almost afford to have a guy who's like, I might have a bad half of the year, whether it's the second half or the first half, because they have reinforcements coming. The Orioles desperately need pitching, and I think the shorter deal, I think the 4-year deal, new owners, they can afford this for sure. Shorter deal, he's off the books when all their young superstars start to hit free agency, so I think it makes sense. And I would not be surprised if at the conclusion of all these free agent deals for the pitchers this year, we look back and Blake Snell was the best signing.
Interesting. Well, I think we're of complete opposite mind of Blake Snell, because I think it's going to be a contract we look back on in the future and shake our heads. I love Blake Snell, don't get me wrong. He's one of my favorite pitchers to watch. When he's good as anybody, ever, honestly. Mm-hmm. But my contract revision for Blake Snell goes by the one rule: history repeats itself. I think the situation is perfectly set up for this to be a disaster contract. Too long, too much money, wrong time.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I have Blake Snell going to the Red Sox in the most ironic contract ever signed in Major League Baseball history. 7 years, $217 million.
Wow.
Do you know what that contract means to the Boston Red Sox?
The 7-2-7, didn't they sign a player to 7-2-17?
Yeah.
Oh, who is it? Oh, who the fuck is it? Give me a hint. I should know it because the number's just like, I was like, wait.
Yeah.
Can you give me a hint?
I honestly thought it was the player you were going to say.
Is it David Price?
It's David Price.
Yeah.
It's the David. I have him signing the exact same David Price contract that he signed in the winter of 2015. 7 years, $217 million. It's $31 million a year. Obviously, it doesn't count for our game. Mm-hmm. But I have history repeating itself. The Red Sox have had such a tumultuous time in the front office the past 5 years, with the Chaim Bloom experiment not going right.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're in a position where they're kind of in the middle of this division. They overperformed by a little bit last year. They obviously need pitching. I've heard rumblings of Snell. I think it's the panic kind of move. Mm-hmm. I think there aren't going to be a lot of teams that are going to be willing to give him that extended year. I do honestly think that if he goes elsewhere, it will be more in the lines of the contract that you predicted. But it just makes too much sense to me in the least sensible way possible.
Yeah.
So that's why I've got Snell going to the Red Sox as an exact repeat of the David Price deal.
I like your thinking there. I had Fried to the Red Sox. We both agree they need that top end starting pitching. I'm gonna give you a hot take right now.
Uh-huh.
So we did our franchise positioning rankings last year, where we basically ranked where every team is.
Right, that was fun.
Yeah, we should do that again. Where every team is in the league, like what franchise are just positioned the best. I think the Boston Red Sox are top 5. I love their prospects. They have tons of money coming up, tons of talent. I think the Red Sox are the most interesting team to watch this offseason, and I think they build a World Series contender for next year.
Wow.
And I'll talk about that later. And you think the polar opposite. You think it's going to be a catastrophic deal to Blake Snell. So, very different opinions, but it is now your pick. We'll see what happens.
It's now my pick. I'm going to, now that a lot of the biggest names are off the board, I'm going to go with one that I think is safest, at least in the team that he's signing with. I'm going with
Hernandez.
Teoscar Hernandez, back to the Dodgers, 3 years, $75 million.
Wow, we had the exact same deal.
Wow. Okay.
I had the Dodgers too, $375.
There we go. So that makes me all that much more confident in it. It just makes too much sense. He's been open about how much he wants to play for the Dodgers. It was obviously a great fit. He gets along with that clubhouse really well. He's got friendships with those guys. They're clearly not afraid to spend a lot of money. I think it's a solid length for Teoscar. I think it's a good average annual value. Just makes too much sense.
It makes the most sense.
And it's going to leave them with a hole that they don't have really anybody to fill.
Especially because Mookie Betts, they just said Mookie Betts moved to the
infield.
infield.
Yeah, so
they don't really have a single everyday outfielder on their roster right now.
No.
It's Andy Paz. It's James Outman. He didn't even make the playoff roster. So it just makes too much sense. I agree. I don't even think we need to spend too much time. It's just a perfect relationship from both sides.
Hernandez.
T. Hernandez.
I cannot believe that was sitting here all week.
It was literally like
Literally right here,
camouflage.
I can't believe it didn't like move. Like nobody like accidentally like that's all it takes. Yeah, that happened before. Actually, now I can pick it up.
Gun to your head. Do you think there's another one in this room? I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised. It might be like trivia banquet. All right.
God knows there were too many of them. So.
Let's see. Where do I go here? I'm going to go Anthony Santander. I think he stays in the AL East. I think he goes to Toronto.
Okay.
I think this is kind of what I talked about with Alex Bregman, and I have him on a 4-year, $90 million deal, $22.5 a year.
Wait, can you say the contract again?
4 years, $90 million.
Okay, wow, I've got him paid less than that, but go ahead.
What do you have?
Do you want the team too, or do you want...
Yeah, just tell me the whole thing.
Okay, well, I have him staying in a place that's familiar with him as well, but it's actually the DMV. I'm going to the Washington Nationals.
I could see that. I could see that.
4 years, $75 million.
I think the thing is Santander is younger than Teoscar, and he showed more power last year, so I think he gets a bigger deal than Teoscar just because of age.
Fair enough. I really had the Teoscar deal inflated because it's the Dodgers.
Yeah, and they can afford it.
So.
I do think the Nats make a big signing. I almost picked Pete Alonso to them. Patrick Corbin comes off the books.
Yeah, right.
So
I almost had Pete Alonso to them as well.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense.
I could see Bregman as also. They're going to sign somebody.
They're going to sign a big name hitter, I think, for the middle of their lineup.
Yeah, they need it.
Yeah.
And they're in a good spot right now.
Basically, my thought process, though, to go back to Santander is the Blue Jays front office, they've swung and missed 4 years in a row. At one point, we thought they were the best situated team in the league. They might be, the GM, Ross Atkins, might be gone after this year. They just have to do something. They have to go out swinging. And this is the bat. I don't think they get Juan Soto. They seem to. People are saying they're actually active players in that, which surprised me a little bit. They have money. I think Santander makes sense. They need a bat. They need an outfield bat, especially. So I think it makes sense. 4 years, $90 million.
All right, for sure. What's the AAV on that?
22.5.
Okay, gotcha. I had him making 18, so that's a bit of a difference. All right, who do I take next? We're definitely in the point of this draft where I'm not too confident anymore. Somehow I didn't write a team down for this guy, so I'm not going to take him.
There's one guy I really don't want you to take. I'm not going to say it, but...
Yeah?
Because I want to talk about him.
Huh. All right. I think I'm gonna play it safe again, I think.
Mm-hmm. Taking Sasaki?
No, because I don't know what that contract is going to look like with all the weird...
Well, it's arbitration. I think every team... I don't think we'll get... We should get money from that. That's just a team thing.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, if it's just a team thing, then maybe I'll take him. But, no, because I want the chance at all of it. So I'm going to go with Jurickson Profar.
Okay.
Back to the Padres. It's the only sensible fit in my eyes. 3 years, $39 million. That's a $13 million average annual value. A nice little pay raise for Profar, who's proven he's a really solid player now in San Diego.
Has he proven it? He was one of the worst players in baseball 2 years ago.
But in San Diego.
In San Diego. Last year. Incredible year last year.
Yeah, it just makes too much sense. I don't think that anybody else is going to really want to take a risk. He's proven that he likes playing in Southern California. I don't know why he would really go anywhere else. He's a good fit for the Padres. He's proven that he can play well there.
Probably got a bad taste. That team wants to run it back.
Yeah,
after how close they were to being the Dodgers.
No, absolutely. And I don't think they really need to make that many changes. But he was a big part of their team last year. I think it makes a lot of sense. So I'm going to say Profar.
All right,
so those are my 2 safe picks.
I had the Padres too. I had a 2-year, $32 million deal.
32.
16 a year. Pretty similar. We're in agreement there. I think he goes back to San Diego. My next guy, I'm going to go, this is one of my favorite predictions of mine, not to toot my own horn. I'm going to go with Christian Walker, and I have him signing a 3-year, $50 million deal to the Boston Red Sox.
Okay.
And you may be saying, wait, the Boston Red Sox, they have a young, talented first baseman in Tristan Casas. I think they trade him. I think they trade him. They trade Casas.
You're going inventive.
I'm being inventive. I think, I just said it, I think the Red Sox are the team of the offseason to watch. First of all, Fenway, second most hitter-friendly park for righties in the league. Look at their lineup right now, the mainstays. Duran, Devers, Casas. Even look at their prospect. So many lefties. They need a right-handed bat, and they need pitching. And I think if they sign Christian Walker, trade Tristan Casas. They can accomplish both of those things. I think Casas goes to Seattle. Just a logical trade partner with all their pitching. Maybe it's Luis Castillo coming back. Maybe it's George Kirby if the Red Sox want to add a prospect or two. I think Christian Walker to the Red Sox, 3 years, $50 million. They turn around, they trade Tristan Casas to Seattle for Luis. I'm going to say Luis Castillo. I mean, I've said it now like 3 times. The really good teams, they value infield defense.
Yeah.
Christian Walker is probably the best first baseman defensively in the league. He can be Alonso for less money, less years, less of a commitment, and I think that's what Boston sees.
Interesting. Well, I think that's a very outside the box prediction. I don't think that the Red Sox are going to trade Casas, but a team that does desperately need a first baseman, needs another bat, needs to stay relevant. I have Christian Walker, 3 years, $66 million to the Houston Astros.
Okay, I can see that.
I think that fit makes a lot of sense. The Astros, I've said it probably each of the past few episodes, they need to make moves to keep themselves relevant. Very similar environment, closed roof stadium, hot city.
Does the Jose Abreu contract scare the Astros away from signing a 34-year-old first baseman at all?
Not
to a
for
3-year deal.
Not for 3 years, no. I don't think so. And Walker's the type of bat that I feel like stands up to the test of time. Sure, he's a home run hitter, but you know what you're getting with him.
And especially defensively.
Yeah, especially defensively. So I think it makes a good deal for the Astros, and they're not necessarily going to want to spend money on a lot of the biggest names on this board this offseason, but I think Christian Walker makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It's a really good middle type range.
I like that.
For the Astros to stay relevant.
I wonder, the team that we haven't brought up at all is Arizona. And that we kind of just penciled away that they're going to lose their guy who firmly in the World Series contender mix, in my opinion, even though they didn't make the playoffs last year. I wonder how much that Jordan Montgomery contract is just kind of fucking them over, for lack of a better phrase.
I don't know if it's necessarily fucking them over. You alluded to this last episode, too. I think it plays a role, but I don't think it necessarily plays a deep role, especially not with a guy who has played there his entire career.
Yeah. I mean, just on paper, you would think, this guy wants to run it back. This team that been very successful the last 2 years. He's been a crucial kind of cog in that machine. They believed in him when he was, on waivers, but I get it. It's free agency. Cash in. All right, it's your pick. Next pick.
All right. Let me think.
Yeah, the decisions get tough here.
Decisions do get tough. Do I just go for... Okay, you know what? I'm going to go with this. It's a third... Yeah, you know what?
And also, I think we'll try to be a little quicker now.
Yeah.
Back end of the draft.
Okay. I'm going to go for my highest average annual value left on the board. I think my highest contract period, actually. I've got Sean Manaea re-signing with the Mets, 3 years, $63 million. I think it's a great contract for him. He's proven he can pitch really well. He reversed the trajectory of his career in Queens. I don't think he's necessarily going to want to experiment and go elsewhere. When it comes down to it, these guys, of course, value contracts, but they're competitors, especially Sean Manaea. I feel like he cares about his career and cares about baseball more than your average MLB player. He's got heart, he's got hustle, he wears it all on his sleeve. I think that
just threw every superlative out there.
Yeah.
First one in, last one out. Gym rat, a real gym rat.
Sure.
Loves film.
So I think Manaea back to the Mets. 3 years, 66. I don't know that anybody's necessarily going to be willing to pay him more, but the formula worked in New York. I think it's going to continue to work. I think it's going to be a good contract for the next at least 2 years.
Yeah.
So Sean Manaea, New York Mets, $21 million a year.
I originally had Manaea to the Mets, and then I changed it. I changed it to the Tigers. 4 years, $68 million. And I thought about it. Sean Manaea, I mean, he's hit free agency 3 years in a row. He's a career journeyman. He's very volatile from year to year, He's changing his arm angle late into his career.
I think he's finally evened that out.
I do too, but I wonder if he's just going to be a best deal available kind of guy. So I have him to the Tigers, and so to piggyback off that, my next pick, you talked about how he turned his career around in Queens, which is 100% true. And he turned his career around kind of tinkering with his arm angle, but tinking. That's a good callback. Here's a guy who really didn't throw a sinker at all before 2024 and 2023, and it becomes his most used pitch last year. And his fastball goes way down. I'm picking another guy who's going to turn his career around in Queens. He kind of turned his career around at the trade deadline last year. I have Yusei Kikuchi to the Mets, and I think they're going to work very similarly.
I like that, actually. That's good reasoning.
We saw it. He got traded to Houston. They upped his slider percentage, kind of lowered by almost, I think, 20%. Lowered all the other pitches, especially the fastball. That's kind of the formula, not with the slider, but that the Mets had with Manaea. And
right, what's the contract?
I have Kikuchi, 3 years, $50 million, Mets.
3 years, 50? Wow, that's steep. I have 4 years, 40 back to Houston.
Really? Yeah. I don't know. I think he was that good in the second half of the season. I think he gets a big contract. I have 16.6 a year.
My reasoning was that I think the Astros wouldn't have traded to the big package to get him had they not intended to re-sign him.
Yeah.
That was my main...
That makes a lot of sense.
That was my main rationale.
Yeah, because it was a big package. Don't clip that.
Okay. With my next pick, I'm going with, I think, the only relief pitcher we've got on the board today, Jeff Hoffman, to the New York Yankees. 3 years, $42 million for an average annual value of $14 million. I think it just makes too much sense. Talk about a guy who's turned his career around. Also, Jeff Hoffman, failed starter. I've been seeing news reports that teams are considering signing him as a starter.
Can I say something?
Dumbest thing I've ever heard.
I had him signing as a starter.
Really? Oh, come on.
Hey, I called Ronaldo Lopez last year.
You did, but it's a little bit of a different situation.
It is
with
different.
Lopez,
It is different.
Because, opposite, Lopez was a reliever, and then so
he hadn't started at all in his career prior.
So Hoffman, I think the Yankees, it's a perfect fit because he's good high leverage. He has the stamina, obviously, as a former starting pitcher, to be an innings eater if they need it, or a guy who can come in and still a close game and pitch, 3 innings.
Yeah.
And the Yankees have been saying since basically the day the World Series ended that they wanted to add to their bullpen. And I think that it's a sensible move. $14 million a year is not breaking the bank, but it's still, I think, more than a lot of other teams would be willing to pay for a guy who doesn't have sustained success over the course of his career. And I think it just makes a lot of sense. The Yankees talk about a team that can really take a reliever and turn them into a star. That's what they've done. They did it with Tim Hill. They've done it with Luke Weaver. A lot of guys, especially with the failed starter notion, that whole story arc. I think Hoffman's a perfect fit in New York. So 3 years, $42 million, Jeff Hoffman.
So we actually agree. I'm going to the Yankees too. 4 years, $44 million.
4 years, $44.
$11 million a year. Yeah, I'm not totally sold on the starter idea, but I think it's potential.
And you think the Yankees take him as a starter?
I don't necessarily think that they're going I was more so I'm open to that possibility. Right. You can always fall back on the fact that he's an elite reliever. Maybe they don't want to hand out 4 years after handing out the Soto money, but yeah, I got him going to the Yankees.
All right, next.
Next pick, I'm just going to take him, Roki Sasaki. We won't have to spend too much time. I just think he's everybody seems to say he's a lock for the Dodgers.
Yeah.
I do think the Padres have a chance, but obviously he will follow the Ohtani pre-arbitration route and then thus hit free agency at 29. But yeah, I think he's going to the Dodgers. No money involved here. Just makes too much sense. They've cornered the market on Japanese baseball talent.
Yeah.
Why don't other teams try to do that? I'm seeing Toronto, right? They have Vladdy who has Dominican roots. Why don't they try to go after Juan Soto? They are trying to go after Juan Soto, but there's almost this added money that involves if a whole team becomes. What was that? That was personal. What was that?
It was a piece of shit.
Oh, I thought it was this Teoscar Hernandez. Did it come off or did you rip it off? All right, that pause is enough. I have Sasaki of the Dodgers. Who's your next pick?
Okay, my next pick, I'm actually really interested in this. One of my favorite players for a very long time. Been kind of sad.
Is it Shane Bieber?
It is Shane Bieber. Kind of a sad career to this point. So much potential. Showed signs of being like that next guy. I remember in the era where it was Jacob deGrom, Justin Verlander, Max Scherzer, Clayton Kershaw, the core four, we were who's next? Who's in this next round? We're talking Walker Buehler, who we're going to get to. But Shane Bieber was the guy for me. Mm-hmm. And the injuries have derailed his career. It was very sad, especially for my fantasy team last year. 2 stunning starts.
That's the worst part.
Season. It's really
your fantasy team. I'm so sorry.
I'm sure he's very upset about that as well. But Shane Bieber, I think there's a good chance he remains in Cleveland.
Really? Okay.
But I'm saying he moves, but not very far. Moves a few miles south, stays in the state of Ohio,
Reds.
reunites with Terry Francona
Okay.
to the Reds, 2 years, $40 million.
Wow. Okay.
I
We
think
have very different ideas of this contract.
I think that the history alone with Shane Bieber is worth paying $20 million because if he comes back and he's healthy.
But he's going to miss the first half of this year, too.
I don't care. The Reds aren't signing anybody else. They have money. I think that he gets paid a decent amount average annual, but it's going to be a short-term, more prove-it deal with a mutual option in there where he could get paid significantly more if he proves that he can pitch well. But I think it's a great fit. I mean, the Reds need some pitching. They need some veteran leadership. Again, he'd be reuniting with Terry Francona, and he doesn't really have to even change the state that he owns residency in. So, yeah, Shane Bieber, 2 years, $40 million.
So I had a 2-year deal for him as well. I have 2 years, $22 million. Might be a player option in there just because of the weird kind of nature of him coming back halfway through the year.
I think it'd be a mutual option.
Or a mutual option. But I have him going to San Diego. I think the Padres are obviously very, they are in the race for the World Series, but at the same time, kind of dealing with financial constraints. Joe Musgrove is out for the year next year. I think it makes a lot of sense on paper to sign a guy who really...
Only got 3 left.
Yeah, only three left, who could really help you in the playoff race, but isn't going to cost an arm and a leg. So Shane Bieber, 2 years, $22 million to the Padres. All right, next pick.
We've only got 3 players.
I think we have 4 left.
Do we have 4? Who's your
Flaherty, Kim, Torres, Buehler.
Oh, yeah, I can't count.
I'm going to take Jack Flaherty just because I think he'll get the most money in the longest deal. This screams like a team that doesn't know what they're doing. And I hate to say it as a Dodger fan, and the Dodgers don't win the World Series without Jack Flaherty, even though he had a very tumultuous playoffs and is a California kid and I think wants to re-sign. He's a California kid, so I'm staying in the state of California. Jack Flaherty to the Angels.
Okay. You talked about this last time, too.
Yeah. 3 years, 68.
Oh, wow.
I just don't think his pitch mix really works. Like, the guy whose curveball is probably his best pitch, but he's got 3 pitches. I feel like as the playoffs went on and you got into the second start in the series, especially versus the Mets and the Yankees, I mean, both times, they fucking teed off of him in the second start. So I just don't know if he... And this was a guy who 1 year ago we're talking about, his career might be over. So I don't think you should give him a lot of money. And when I don't think that you should give him a lot of money, it seems like the Angels would give him a lot of money.
Yeah, that's fair. I have a similar contract. I have less money, but also 3 years, $51 million. To a California team, but not the Angels, not the Dodgers, the Giants.
Okay, I can see that too.
I could see that. I feel like, based on my predictions, I have the Giants swinging and missing in free agency again. It feels like a late off-season panic move that the Giants are going to make to bring him in. I think they're going to lose Snell. They still have yet to make that big move that they've been looking to make for several seasons now. Correa, Judge, swing, miss. Ohtani, swing, miss. And I think that they're just going to take what they can get. And Jack Flaherty's that guy.
Yeah,
but
totally.
That's my guess.
Makes a lot of sense.
I have 3 years, 51 to the Giants. So.
All right, so we got 3 players left, and we got a Yankee and a Dodger in the mix.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I'm not going to take either of them right now, though.
Okay.
I'm going to go with Ha-Seong Kim, and I have him going to the Red Sox. 4 years, $48 million. That's $12 million annually. I think it makes a lot of sense. I think the Red Sox are a team that needs to fill out their roster. I have them signing Blake Snell. I don't think that they're going to end there. I think they're going to do something perhaps a little bit more sensible and a little bit more cost-effective to fill out their infield.
Yeah.
Ha-Seong Kim, 4 years.
They have a lot of infield prospects. I kind of disagree with this one because they have a lot of infield prospects. And I think Kim is going to kind of approach this free agency very similar to how Shane Bieber does, where it's a 2-year deal with a mutual option because of the injury and kind of the potential he showed. And if he returns to that form, he wants to hit the open market again. I have him going to Kansas City. They need to sign a bat. Bobby Witt needs somebody around him. Booby Tit. 2 years, $22 million. So we kind of disagree there. All right. My last pick. We got a Yankee and a Dodger, so I got to take the Dodger.
Okay.
I feel like it makes sense. I have Walker Buehler returning to the Dodgers. This may be like an emotional pick of mine because I I don't want to see that guy, especially after how the World Series ended and the playoffs went, on another team. This is what I will say, though. Maybe I'm just coping, but if you looked at Walker Buehler's kind of makeup, and he was coming, let's say Walker Buehler...
Have some nice foundation.
Yeah, exactly. Great mascara. If you looked at Walker Buehler and kind of his career trajectory, not makeup, and let's say he was hitting free agency from the Kansas City Royals, this screams like a guy the Dodgers signed. It's a reclamation project. And they're like, oh, we can get in when his value's low and we can kind of make him into the pitcher that he once was. That is especially helped by the fact that he seemed to return to that form in October.
Yeah.
Loves the moments. And he's a Dodger legend now. He's Oral Hershiser status in some ways. Closing out a World Series, just wearing the jersey at the parade. So I'm going to take him 1 year, $14 million deal back to the Dodgers.
1 year, 14. Okay. I had Buehler going to the Tigers, 2 years, 34.
Okay.
I think that, honestly, I can just close my eyes and see him wearing a Tigers uniform.
I could see that too.
I think it just looked good on him. And the Tigers, I think, will have obviously seen what he did in the playoffs last year. They're going to want to claim some of that spark that he brings to their team. They need pitchers. He's a good short-term deal, pretty low-risk, high-reward move for the Tigers. And, yeah, that's my prediction there. Closing out this draft, I'm left with Gleyber Torres, so I have him going to the Seattle Mariners.
Ooh, I have the same thing.
3 years, $27 million.
Only $9 million a year?
Yeah. I don't think that... Let me put it this way. Gleyber Torres showed that he was solid in the playoffs last year, but aside from that, the trajectory of his career has been going down, down, down. It's the lowest average annual value I have by far, honestly, in this draft, in this game that we played today. And the Mariners need to fill out their infield. I don't think they're going to re-sign Jorge Polanco. Kind of high reward, high benefit for them, but not really, because I think we've seen what Gleyber Torres is capable of at this point. He's not going to be 2018 again. It's not going to be a 35 homer season.
Do you think he can have an 800 OPS season still?
I'd bet against it.
Okay.
I think more in the 700 OPS range.
Yeah.
He's really an average bat. Honestly, I think the team that would make the most sense for him to sign with, just from a historical perspective, is the Baltimore Orioles, especially with them moving the walls back in. He fucking raked.
Yeah, he raked
at Camden Yards back in the day. But they obviously don't need any more infielders right now, and they've got talent far better than Gleyber Torres. Mariners, 3 years, $27 million. That's a $9 million average annual value. And with that, we are done.
Yeah. Quickly, I have Torres to the Mariners, too. I have the Mariners right side of their infield next year being Tristan Casas and Gleyber Torres.
Very interesting.
1 year, $17 million. I think it's more money, shorter deal.
All right.
That's it.
There you have it, folks.
Follow along.
So let's go through these teams one more time. So Noah took Juan Soto, Alex Bregman. Well, you know what? Just why don't you run through all your picks? Do you have them written?
Yeah. Do you want to keep that up? Do you want the money too?
No, just do the team.
Juan Soto to the Yankees, Alex Bregman to the Phillies, Willy Adames to the Mets, Blake Snell to the Orioles, Anthony Santander to the Blue Jays, Christian Walker to the Red Sox, Yusei Kikuchi to the Mets, Roki Sasaki to the Dodgers, Jack Flaherty to the Angels, Walker Buehler to the Dodgers.
All right. I actually don't have this prepared the same way. So I've got Pete Alonso to the Mets, Corbin Burnes to the Orioles, Max Fried to the Dodgers, Teoscar Hernandez to the Dodgers, Jurickson Profar to the Padres, Sean Manaea to the Mets, Jeff Hoffman to the Yankees, Shane Bieber to the Reds, Ha-Seong Kim to the Red Sox, and Gleyber Torres to the Mariners.
All right, yeah. We'll see. We'll see who knows more ball.
We will see.
It'll be fun to follow along.
Yeah, it'll be fun to follow along. We'll update you as the offseason goes on.
Mm-hmm. Hopefully it goes better for you than the sabotage draft.
Yeah. It was really not that. It ended up being fairly close.
Yeah.
So.
Cool.
Yeah. But anyway, that's this week's episode. Thank you for listening. Enjoy the offseason. Hopefully not too many of these guys sign before you hear this. But if they do, hopefully we're right. At least one of us. Follow on Instagram at Worst Baseball Show, at The Worst MLB. Twitter is at Worst Base. And yeah, enjoy your week. Enjoy your fall time. Enjoy your Thanksgiving. And we'll see you next time.
Enjoy free agency.